Hello YouTube and welcome to another pfSense tutorial. So in this video I'm going to show you how to set up SSH access to pfSense using public key infrastructure. So are you ready? Let's get started. So sometimes you need to SSH to your pfSense for administrative task or remotely actually, and you need for that to enable SSH access. So in this tutorial I'm going to show you how you can do that. Okay, so first let's create just a simple user that can actually connect to our pfSense using SSH. So let's create this user. For that, pretty simple, we go to our system menu here and user manager. Okay, then you can add user. So I will add here a user. So for example, let's just call it SSH user. Okay, and here I will give it just a password, but I'm not going to use this password for SSH access. Okay, so here I'm just showing you the default settings. Okay, so it's an SSH user. Okay, and I will just make it also an admin. Okay, so I'll click on that, and this is all what we need in order to set up our actually SSH user. Okay, so as you can see here, our SSH user has been added as it's enabled. Okay, and in order to allow actually SSH access to our pfSense, we have actually to enable SSH. By default it's not enabled, but me, I already enabled that. So for that you go to system and to advanced menu. Okay, and you scroll down till you find this checkbox here, enable secure shell. Okay, and for the SSH key only, I'll be using actually public key only. I'm not using here password or public key, because if you choose password or public key, you can log on to your pfSense using SSH using just a password, for example. But here we are restricting access to only public key infrastructure, and I will show you actually how to set up this public key infrastructure. Okay, so there are the two options that you have to enable here. Secure shell, of course, you have the daemon must be started, and we're gonna use public key only. Okay, and you can also change the default port if you want, but here I will keep with the default one, which is 22. Okay, so that's all you have to do, and of course you have to save your configuration. So me, I already done that. Okay, so now we'll begin the most important step, which is actually to generate those keys. And for that we need actually to download a special program called actually PuTTY key generator. So you'll find actually the link to this download here. So there are a lot of actually utilities. You can of course download the PuTTY, which is the main program to just an SSH client that will allows you to connect to our pfSense. But here we are interested to this one, PuTTY, which allows us to create or generate the keys needed in order to allow access, to allow public only access to our pfSense. Okay, you can also generate a key using Windows, but for that you have to enable SSH client on Windows. But I guess the most interesting thing here and obvious one is to use this PuTTY program. So after downloaded, I will launch it. Here we go. So this is the PuTTY actually, or actually this is not PuTTY, it's just PuTTY, which is the SSH client, but we need actually PuTTY. So let me launch PuTTY. Here we go. This is our PuTTY key generator. It's pretty easy to use. So the first thing here that you have to set up or to choose actually is the type of key to generate. So most of users use this RSA type of keys. Of Of course you can choose the other one if you want, but I will stick with this one, which has strong actually algorithm for encryption. So we'll choose RSA, and the number of bits I will keep the default, which is 2048, but you can increase that if you want for stronger actually encryption. Okay, so after you have chosen these two values, we have to generate our key, and in order to do that, it's pretty easy. You have just to click on this button, generate. Here we go, and here you have to actually move your mouse in order to get some random values for the key generation process. Okay, so I'll keep here generating or moving my mouse, and here we go. You can see that now I have generated our key. So here at the top you can see the public key is generated. You can also double protect your keys using the key passphrase, okay, because normally you will store these keys on your PC. So the public key, you can give it to everyone that you want to have access to, but you should never share your private key. It will remain on your PC or in a secure location. So it's a good practice also to protect it using a passphrase. But here I will not be using a passphrase. I will keep the thing simple here. Just remember, here we have our keys generated, we have our public key, okay, and we have our private key. Okay, so let's now just copy this public key and paste it to our pfSense. Okay, so let's copy the whole text here, so make sure to copy the whole text. Here we go. So as I told you, the public key should be actually set up on pfSense. So I will just paste the whole text on my pfSense user configuration. So I will return back to my user manager here, and for the user that I want to allow access using this public key, I want to edit it, and we scroll down till we find actually section, as you can see here, called keys, and I will just paste what we have copied, which is our public key. Okay, so that's all what we need to do, and we're gonna save that, of course. So now that we have actually paste our public key, we have now everything in order to allow access to this SSH user to our pfSense. Okay, but remember one thing, you have also to save your private key, which should not be shared. It will be actually just stored in your local drive or USB if you want. So let's save our private key without using passphrase. As I told you, you can use passphrase or not, so I will not use this passphrase. So let's just name it pfSense private key actually. So I'm gonna save it on my documents, but make sure to save it on a secure location. But just here for educational purposes, I will just put it here. Okay, so I will save it. So now I can just access to my pfSense using this public key infrastructure. So I will show you how, but for that I will of course use not PuTTY key generator this time, but any SSH client, and the most famous one is of course PuTTY. So let's launch PuTTY and see how we can get access to it. So this is our PuTTY. So I will enter here the IP address of my pfSense in order to connect to it. So here I'm connecting via a LAN network. Okay, but of course in order to access from the one, you have to first enable one rule that allow SSH access, which is not there by default. Okay, and actually I don't advise you to allow access from the internet to SSH, because you should never expose your administrative interfaces to the internet. So the best way to connect to your pfSense from the internet is actually using VPN. So you see my previous video about WireGuard, for example, in order to connect to our pfSense. Okay, but here I will try just to connect it using my LAN network. Okay, so I input the IP address, the port, the default one, I didn't change it, and of course the connection type is SSH. But here we have to provide actually the private key in order to connect to our pfSense, because we'll not be using a password authentication but a public key authentication. So now under the authentication section, we go to credentials, and here we have to browse to the private key that we have saved before. So remember, it was on my documents, so I will choose this one. Here we go. And now I guess we have everything. So we have now this window. This allows us to connect to our pfSense, and hopefully we can connect using our SSH user without any password. Okay, here we go. And as you can see, I am in, so I can execute whatever command I thought I want on pfSense, for example here. Okay, so we have successfully configured and set up SSH key authentication on pfSense. So that was just a brief video to show you how to set up SSH access to your pfSense using public key infrastructure. Okay, so if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content. And of course, if you have any suggestion for future videos, drop them in the comment below. As always, I hope it has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing. Bye bye.